We've divided this chapter into 4 major warnings. Beware of surety, beware of slothfulness, beware of the froward. And then we've come to the last section of the chapter, beware of the adulterous woman. There's a warning that begins in verse 20, my son, keep thy father's commandment, forsake not the law of thy mother. Verses 20 through 23 are an extended exhortation to listen to counsel and advice. Heed the warning of experience. Bind these things continually upon thy heart. Tie them about thy neck, verse 21. We've noted it almost every time we've come across the word heart. The Hebrew word is lab. Twice in the book of Proverbs it's translated libab. Matter of fact, one of those will occur in verse 25 of this chapter. But for now, when you see that word and its different derivations, it's important to think about the core of a person, who a person really is. The father, the teacher, the wise man exhorts his student, bind these things continually upon thy heart. Bind these to who you are. Tie them about thy neck, both within and without. Let this be who you are. It's going to lead your way. It's going to keep you safe. It's going to talk with you. Verse 22, when you go, it shall lead thee. When you sleep, it shall keep thee. When thou awakest, it shall talk with thee. Guidance. Anyone ever been guided today from something that was learned 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago? Guidance. The guidance of counsel. Verse 23, the commandment is a lamp, lights your way. The law is a light, it illuminates. And the reproof of instruction are the way of life. Here's the path that's worth taking and the life that's worth living. To keep thee from the evil woman. Yes, everything said up to this point has been building up to a very specific warning. A warning that has appeared back in Proverbs 2. She was discussed in Proverbs 5. Here there's a discussion about her in Proverbs 6. And Proverbs 7 is all about this area of transgression. There is a reason why this particular topic is one that sits so heavily on the heart and weighs so prominently in the exhortation that comes in the book of Proverbs. It's because it is a regular, common, human temptation. So, as the wise man gives counsel, keep these wise words so that they'll keep thee from the strange woman. From the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of the strange woman. Her flattery is mentioned in chapter 2, verse 16. She's the stranger which flattereth with her words. Her flattery is mentioned in chapter 7, verse 5. This concept of flattery is integral in what she is and what she does. Flattery works. Flattery works with the simple-minded, and flattery, done effectively enough, can work with the strong-minded, especially when that flattery bolsters the strong-minded about being so strong-minded. Flattery works. So the wise man says, let this keep you from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of the strange woman. We're going to call verses 20 through 26 a warning about her trap. And we're not talking about her mouth, although that's part of it. Verse 24, the flattery of the tongue of the strange woman. Part of her trap, her allure, her appeal, verse 26, is her beauty. Lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. Anyone ever heard the term, she bats those eyes at him? What's that mean? She just got to give that look, right? Anyone remember those animated Disney movies that were worth watching? The female protagonist in those movies, usually a princess or what have you. What was always the case with her eyes? Always large, always appealing, always bright. There is something about eyes that can indeed capture the soul. Neither let her take thee with her eyelids. literally, verse 25, lust not after her beauty in thine heart. Don't let the core of who you are be something that lets your decisions be swayed by outward appearance. There's an old saying, beauty is skin deep, but, come on, where's it go? Beauty is skin deep, but, there you go, ugly goes right to the bone. There's something ugly about being swayed solely by beauty. Neither lust not after her beauty in thine heart. At the core of your being, don't let someone else's outward appearance be what sways you. Neither let her take thee with her eyelids. So she has two areas of appeal. What she says, verse 24, and how she looks, verse 25. Sometimes those attributes will combine. It'll be the double whammy. But one is frequently sufficient to fool those that are susceptible to falling for her wiles. So, let's think about her flattery for just a moment. Now, typically, we think of her flattery as being, oh, you're so handsome. Or you think about what's going to be said in chapter 7. You're the man I've been trying to find. That's the kind of appeal she will use. The exact way that it's worded, chapter 7, verse 13, she caught him and kissed him, and with an impudent face said unto him, I have peace offerings with me. This day I've paid my vows. Diligently came I forth to meet thee, to seek thy face. I've been looking for you. You're the man I'm trying to find. We often think of her flattery as being that outward and obvious. Sometimes her flattery is, you're the only one that understands me. You know, you're the only one that really seems to listen. I think you're the only one that cares. Is there anything wrong with being a person that tries to understand others? A person that listens and a person that cares? Not at all. But frequently her appeal will be not in, oh, you're so big and strong and handsome. Sometimes it's going to be, oh, you're so warm and kind and tender. Yes, those that want to be known as warm and kind and tender can still be as gullible as the cow led to slaughter. Lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. So, what she says, and maybe it's not just building him up for some sort of physical attribute, but I need you. How many people would like to be needed? How many people want to be needed? Want to be helpful? Want to know that you've done something to benefit someone else? She knows that. Whereas the writer of Proverbs addressed this toward a son, warning about the feminine gender, these principles can really apply both ways. How many women have found themselves in the wrong place with the wrong person because she wanted to be helpful, but at the same time she felt like she had something missing, and that rendered her susceptible to his wiles and deceit. So, to keep thee from the evil woman, the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman, I need you. You help me. You understand me. You're the only one that listens. Lust not after her beauty in thine heart. Oh, but she's so pretty. Have you ever seen fellas that will open the door for an attractive lady, but they see some other random stranger coming to the door and they won't open the door for her? You ever seen brethren act like that? Do you know why it is so often the case in human tendency that we will be nicer to the good-looking than we will be to those that are less aesthetically appealing? It's because we are so inclined to lust after beauty in our hearts. Shame on us. Remember God's words to Samuel? Look not on his outward appearance. That's what he told Samuel, 1 Samuel 13. When Samuel was trying to find the one that God had chosen, a man after his own heart that would be the next king of Israel. God doesn't look on the outward appearance. God looks on the heart. We have to be careful not to be judging based on that outward beauty. Verse 26, 5, one other detail. Neither let her take thee with her eyelids. There's something about the way that she looks at him. It hits on that feeling needed aspect. So here's her trap. Her allure pertains to her beauty or her words, and there is an assortment of approaches that she might take. But by and large, it's going to be what she says or how she looks. Verse 26, here's the reason we're calling this a trap. For by means of a whorish woman a man is brought to a piece of bread, and the adulteress will hunt for the precious life. Whereas in verse 25, the word translated take is translated capture in the English Standard. Don't let her capture you. Don't let her snare you. Don't let her arrest you and cuff you and detain you with her eyelids. Verse 26 hits on the idea of she's on the hunt. She will hunt for the precious life. There's something that she wants, and it's not your well-being. This is not a statement to describe every female, no more than it would be a statement to describe every male. But there are those who find their sense of importance in what they perceive themselves as conquering, or in whom they perceive themselves as conquering. And there are those for whom a married man is an additional challenge. And she can look in the mirror and feel, well, I'm more wanted than this woman or that woman because her husband was willing to. And there's a competitive mindset at play in her reasonings. Oh, will she actually put it in those exact words? No. But as she's operating based on her emotional feelings, that's the rationale that's compelling her. Sometimes it's just about feeling like, well, I'm more wanted than so-and-so. And then there are times that, well, he's the boss. Or he's someone in a position of importance. He's a leader in the workplace. Or he's a leader in the community. Or he's a leader in the church. There are those that will set out to climb their Pikes Peak, their Kilimanjaro, or their Everests in the leaders that they are able to claim as a notch on the headboard. Preachers, they are out there. And it's not going to be a matter of how attractive you are. It's just how attractive the scenario is of having made another accomplishment in this quest for self-importance. That's how she works. Verse 26, by means of a whorish woman, a man is brought to a piece of bread. In other words, he's brought to nothing. He's brought to poverty. A piece of bread being the base necessity for living. The adulteress will hunt for the precious life. She's on the hunt for your life, so she's a trap. Verses 27 through 29. What happens when you play with fire? You get burned. You play with fire enough and you might just burn your entire house down. Can a man take fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burned? You play with fire, you're going to get burned. Can a man go upon hot coals and his feet not be burned? Interestingly, the word translated burned in verse 28 appears to carry the idea not of the scar, but more of a branding. So, some might read verse 28 and think, well, wait, there are those firewalkers that know how to walk on hot coals and their feet not be burned. Oh no, their feet are burned. They train for an extended period of time to desensitize the bottoms of their feet in order to be able to do what they do. Their feet are burned. They just don't feel it anymore. Can one go upon hot coals and his feet not be burned? It's going to burn whether he feels it or not. Verse 29, here's the culmination of this immediate thought. So he that goeth in to his neighbor's wife, a description of the act of intimacy. So he that goeth into his neighbor's wife, whosoever toucheth her shall not be innocent. This is not only a declaration of her guilt, but when you touch fire, you get burned. It's a consequence. Whether you're playing with fire, whether you're walking on fire, when you touch her, there's a consequence. There's a punishment. And the word translated innocent could also be translated unpunished. He that toucheth her shall not be unpunished. In matter of fact, that's the way it's translated in the American Standard. There's going to be a punishment. No matter how long he thinks he can keep it a secret, there's going to be a punishment. Now, let's back up to something. In verse 26, there are two descriptions given of this strange woman. For by means of a whorish woman. Another translation has by means of a harlot. We understand what a harlot is. She gets paid to let someone else enjoy her body. For by means of a whorish woman, a man is brought to a piece of bread. And the adulteress. Interesting way to translate this word. The English Standard has the married woman. This is not the streetwalker per se. This is not the one who has a red light on the front porch. This is not the one who is more obviously in the wrong business. This is the one who has a persona of being a wife to someone, but she's on the hunt for someone else. You might read this as, instead of the adulteress will hunt for the precious life, the married woman, she's another man's wife. She's married to someone else, yet she's hunting for a precious life. She's got a conquest mindset herself. This brings into the picture not just the one who's on a conquest to feel as though she rates higher than the wife of her paramour that she seduced. This is someone who's on a conquest because she's not happy with her husband for whatever the reason, whatever the mindset. Whether there be negligence on her husband's part or not matters not. The fact of the matter is she's hunting for the precious life, so she's on the hunt. She is a trap. Her touch guarantees a punishment, which brings us to verse 30. There's a comparison made. You see a depiction of someone impoverished and poor, having to steal for food. Is there a certain sense of pity there? Is there in the human mind, is there in your capacity for imagination the ability to perceive a situation where someone might innocently be in such a scenario so as to be unable to afford food, unable to obtain it, and no one else willing to give it, and so the only option is to try to steal food? It's a drastic scenario, but is it one that's imaginable? Okay. Why do we eat food? To stay alive. Survival. There are impulses and appetites that God has given us, some of which are for survival, some of which have a life propagating design, but are not necessarily for the survival of the individual. Take, for instance, intimacy. Yes, it's procreation. Yes, it's the part of the outcome of intimacy can be the bringing about of the next generation. But it's not the survival of life. Not immediate survival. We can sympathize with a thief that steals because he's in a situation where it seems that there are no options. Yes, our minds can quickly run to the scenario of would there be more honest options? Absolutely. Nonetheless, listen to what the wise man says. Verse 30. Men do not despise a thief if he steal to satisfy his soul. The word translated soul is the Hebrew word nephesh, and here it carries the idea of a hunger or an appetite. The English Standard has the word craving. If he steal to satisfy his craving when he's hungry. Here's someone that is starving hungry and he steals to satisfy that craving. Men don't necessarily despise him, disdain him. There's a sense of sympathy, but verse 31, if he be found, if he be caught, he shall restore sevenfold. Interestingly, if you do a study of the different punishments of restitution, there was a twofold repayment under the old law. There was a fourfold repayment, even a fivefold repayment. Read through the book of Leviticus. But never was there a sevenfold repayment. Yet here's the description of a thief who's caught, and he gives sevenfold. Why is he giving sevenfold? The law never required such. He did what he did to survive, but he's trying to do everything that he can to restore what he did and make things right. And not just do the bare minimum of twofold, fourfold, or fivefold, sevenfold. If he be found, he'll restore sevenfold. He'll give all the substance of his house. There's a contrast made here. Whereas with the thief, there is the possibility of restitution. But, verse 32, whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. Hold on to that thought. We're going to come back to it. For now, he is in an identity crisis. He's self-destructive. Verse 33, a wound and dishonor shall he get, his reproach shall not be wiped away. Now that thief was able to make restitution, restore sevenfold, give all the substance of his house. He's not despised. He's not condoned for what he does. A blind eye is not turned, but he's not despised. However, with this, the one that committeth adultery with another man's wife, a wound and dishonor shall he get, his reproach shall not be wiped away, his shame's not going anywhere. Why? Because jealousy is the rage of a man, and therefore he's not going to spare in the day of vengeance. There will be no, listen, you were doing what you did in order to survive. That's not what it was. Maybe it was the quest for pleasure. Lust of the flesh. Maybe it was a quest for just covetousness. Lust of the eye. Maybe it was pride of life. That nasty locker room mentality of being able to tell himself, hey, I conquered that mountain. Whatever his motivation, or whatever combination of motivations, The man that has been wronged will not spare in the day of vengeance. He'll not regard any ransom. There's no paying it back. Neither will he rest content. He's not going to say, oh, it'll be all right, though thou givest many gifts. There is no recompense for what's taken when adultery happens. Now remember, that thought will come back to it. But here's her toll. She's a trap. Her bait is her words, or her bait is her looks, but she's on the hunt. There's her touch, and it will guarantee a punishment. Sooner or later, her touch, to touch her will not leave one unpunished or innocent. And now there's her toll. Involvement with her is a guarantee that the one who did it doesn't even know who he is. He has zero sense of self or integrity. Why do we say that? Look back at verse 32. He that committeth with adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. The word translated understanding, here's that word again, lab. He has no center. He lacks a core of his being. He doesn't know who he is. This is not understanding being or tabuna, the idea of seeing things from another point of view. This might well be translated, he that committeth adultery with a woman lacketh heart. He doesn't know who he is. If you've ever counseled or had a conversation with those that, I'm using very specific words here, found themselves in that situation, they never thought that they would do this, but they did. Why do they engage in such conduct? Because they never thought that they would do it, but they never decided that it would not happen. They never chose beforehand who they would be and what they would be if the temptation and the scenario arose. They never decided, here's the line and I'm not crossing it. Or they once decided, then they began to rethink their decision. He's lost sense of who he is, or she's lost sense of who she is. In counseling with some couples, it's important to realize that once two become one, husband and wife are married, can his actions have an impact on her sense of who she is? Can her actions have an impact on his sense of who he is? All Christians, please hear these words. This is in no way a justification for those who have engaged in sinful behavior that God condemns, but every husband and every wife has a responsibility in and of ourselves to make sure our spouses know who we are and who they are, to the point that we make adultery seem like something they would never want to do, instead of something that's awfully appealing, but I'm not going to do it because I'm not supposed to do it. Yes, there are spouses that are involved in identity crisis due to no fault at all of the other spouse. And there are others who lack understanding, who lack heart, who've forgotten who they are because one spouse has been tearing the other apart in subtle ways for years. A peripheral warning to be taken from Proverbs 6:32. Know who you are. Know who your spouse is. And make sure your spouse knows who he or she is. And if my relationship with my spouse is centered around tearing my spouse down and ripping my spouse of all sense of personality, individuality, and sense of self, I had better not be surprised when I start feeling that I've been slighted, because my spouse found comfort in other arms. Because when I have behaved in such a way so as to strip my spouse of any sense of self, I am part of the reason that she or he lacketh understanding. An identity crisis. If our behavior contributes to an identity crisis with our spouses, the first thing that needs to change is not my spouse. It's me. He that committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. Now please understand, not everyone that fits this description has been pushed toward it by being neglected or mistreated or ill-treated by a spouse. There are some that simply lack understanding, lack a sense of self, because they've not decided who they're going to be. Identity crisis. Maybe it's that midlife crisis. He thought he would have accomplished more by this age. He would have done more. He would have had more in the bank or a bigger house. And now he's groping for something else to make him feel a sense of accomplishment. Hey, she's pretty. Why not? Whatever the motivation is for the identity crisis, there's no excuse. So he has an identity crisis. He doesn't know who he is. And, verse 32, he's self-destructive. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. He's tearing himself apart. And by the way, those that don't know who they are frequently tear themselves apart, because that identity crisis and a sense of trying to find self or try to redefine self based on pleasure, based on sensuality, results in a self-hatred. Ask the alcoholic. Ask the drug addict. Ask the one addicted to pornography. Ask the adulterer. A lack of understanding of who he is and self-destructive behavior. And yes, his behavior will ruin his reputation permanently. A wound and dishonor shall he get, verse 33, the reproach shall not be wiped away. Adultery cannot be recompensed. Now please understand, I did not say it cannot be forgiven. But it can't be repaid. Something has been taken that can never be given back. Something has been given to someone else that can never be regained. Thus the wise man describes it as the rage of a man. If you were to ask any random person what situations would be most likely to cause them to behave with blind rage, how high up the list do you think adultery would be? Somewhere right there in the realm of having family lives taken right in front of his eyes? Jealousy is the rage of a man. Jealousy. Jealousy is knowing what belongs to me, what is rightfully mine, and wanting to protect it, care for it. God is a jealous God, and rightly so. We hear the word jealous and we always think of it as a bad thing. That is a grave mistake. There are those things which belong to us that we have a responsibility to preserve and protect. And there is nothing wrong with the jealousy described here. Thus, the warning to the would-be adulterer, that husband that you've slighted, he's not going to regard any ransom. He's not going to rest content, though thou give us many gifts. You can't pay this back. You can't recoup that relationship. You can't save your face. You can't avoid the punishment. The wise man of Proverbs gives strong warning regarding this particular area of consideration. It's not a comfortable one, but it's one that we would do well to take to heart and also instill in the next generation. Thank you for your time this evening.